So we're middle of Sif Yud. Middle of Sif Yud, correct? And we're middle of, not middle, we're just beginning Sif Yud, right? Why is everyone looking at me with blank stares in their faces?
Now wrapping up.
Make sure that you're...
Oh, you're just looking at the beginning. Okay, so we're doing Sif Yud. We're holding at, today the Iker is going to be two big sugyas, Mekabel Tumah and Tzivonim. Mekabel Tumah and Tzivonim, two of the most relevant sugyas in Hilchos Niddah. So we have to figure out, as we ended off the last year, we have to figure out what is the status with toilet paper, what is the status with pads, what color is called colored, and what do we do with the kesem on any of the aforementioned items, including toilets, toilet water, urine, and I think that's the gamut of everything. So let's see how much we can get involved with. So we begin with the tshuva that many of you saw, Yerdei Achel Gimel Siman Nun Gimel and Ramosha. We begin with Ramosha, and what we're trying to figure out is a synthetic beged. A synthetic beged is then included in something that is Inoi Mekabel Tumah. Of course, the background, like you've all seen, is that there is no ksamim if something falls on something that is not Mekabel Tumah. There is no ksamim if something falls on something that is colored. What does that mean? There's no ksamim. That means, regardless of how large the stain is, the woman will be tahar. Of course, if she is having her period, it will not help if it falls onto a colored garment, because that is her period, as we spoke about extensively. But if it's not, if it's a kesem in the world of ksamim, then it makes a very big difference if it falls on Mekabel Tumah or colored. So the question is a synthetic beged Mekabel Tumah or not? That is the question that Ramosha discusses, and the background of the tshuva is, on one hand, every beged in the world is Mekabel Tumah, because the pasuk says Oy beged, and that's a marbeh that begadim are Mekabel Tumah. And that's the reason why the Minchas Yitzchak and the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch all say, I don't care what the beged is made out of. The beged can be made out of materials which are not Mekabel Tumah, but it is a beged, and therefore it is a Mekabel Tumah. So if there is a pair of synthetic is plastic, ostensibly, but if you have a pair of synthetic anything, I don't have to give examples, underwear, shorts, linens, whatever it's going to be, a beged that is synthetic, the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch and the Minchas Yitzchak, all right, it is Mekabel Tumah. Why is it Mekabel Tumah? Riboy Hakra. Here comes along Ramosha. Ramosha says that the dinim of Tumah v'Taira are different from all other. The dinim of Tumah are different than other dinim. Ramosha's raya is similarly like we find by Hilchos Tzitzis, that even though the beged is considered a beged for being Mekabel Tumah, says Ramosha, it's not a beged for Hilchos Tzitzis. And therefore, says Ramosha, how is a nylon made? This is what I was going to read over here. What is the mitzias of nylon? Says Ramosha, it's made from the adama, it's made from the ground, it's actually made from shemen, it's made from the oil that are in the depths of the ground, and therefore, says Ramosha, it is not Mekabel Tumah. Again, even though normally all begadim are Mekabel Tumah, Ramosha is being machalik, that is, if it is synthetic, just like you can have different dinim by tzitzis, you can have different dinim over here. Therefore, it says Ramosha, it's going to not be Mekabel Tumah. This is primarily a Hilchos Tumah v'Taira. Why is it different? Ramosha doesn't necessarily explain. He just says that the din of by us is going to be cholak, and he says a raya of tzitzis. His raya is why that is true. A raya is in Tumah v'Taira, which I don't necessarily understand, and therefore Ramosha is mekel, that is not Mekabel Tumah.
How much of it is maybe synthetic?
Oh, very good. That's a very good question. That before we get to there, so what's the psak halacha? Yes, what percentage has to be synthetic? But before we get there, the pashtas, the psak halacha. Listen, Ramosha is mekel. There's definitely going to be a makom to be mekel if it's going to be a synthetic garment. Now, what percentage is called makes up the garment? Usually, it goes by roiv. And therefore, many garments, many nowadays are both polyester and cotton. Polyester is plastic, and cotton is not. And therefore, many garments have a large component of cotton to them, often the majority. And if that would be the case, then even Ramosha, of course, No, I shouldn't say of course. Even Rav Moshe L'chayra would agree it is Mekabel Tumah. So again, something that is fully synthetic will not be Mekabel Tumah, but other things will be. So now, this segues directly into what is a pad, and what is the status of a pad in Hilchos Niddah. First of all, if you ever want to know, it's called a tachboshet. I'm not going to pronounce that word right. It's Hey Gimel Yud Yod Nun Yud Vav hygienist, like to be hygienically whatever. So that's the Hebrew word actually. Anyway, so if you look for it, it's a tachboshet. So if we're going to discuss a pad, we have to realize that we can't just say is a pad Mekabel Tumah or not, because we have to say, as you already saw after learning the whole Sif Yod, we have to discuss. I'm going to break it down in a moment into Keseder, but we have to know, is it Mekabel Tumah? Where the pad is being worn, maybe that tells us that Oisei Makom is Baduk, and therefore it came straight from the Guf. And the fact that it's being held by a pair of underwear is going to be a third component to the Sheila. So I have it broken down over here into 6 steps to deal with a pad. So number 1 is it Mekabel Tumah or not? And this is a straight machlekes between, we could give any names and faces, but I have over here, it's the Nissim Krelitz versus Rav Elyashiv. Rav Elyashiv is a machmir that the material is Mekabel Tumah, whereas the Chutshani is Megel. Next, number 2 is the pad is being worn directly on the body, directly on Oisei Makom. So do we say Oisei Makom Baduk Mi Macheles? If any dam over there is going to be a problem. So we already spoke out the Tzad Hakula, so we'll start with there, which was Rav Moshe. The Rav Moshe says that no, that only by a bedika that goes directly in do we say that, but anything that's going to be covering a little bit of the surrounding areas, says Rav Moshe and others, we would still have the Tliyah B'Macheles. Just to know who are the machmir, where the cheshav ha'ifel, dayin padwa, he is a machmir. And he says, no, he says that a pad is the same din as a kinuach mibachutz. It's a good lashon for everyone to know what's a kinuach mibachutz. Kinuach means to wipe, mibachutz is on the outside. Kinuach mibachutz is the terminology in halacha that means she didn't do a bedika, she externally wiped herself. Who cares? Says the cheshav ha'ifel, if she externally wiped herself, he's a machmir. But you don't have a tzli b'bacheles right now. Why not? Because she wiped Oisei Makom. We all in this room already learned Rav Moshe back from day 1. That Rav Moshe says, no, you don't necessarily just wipe b'diyuk b'Oisei Makom. You don't wipe precisely. As you're wiping, you wipe in the general area. So you also get the ksavais, the svasais, you also get the lips around. And that's where Rav Moshe and other Paiskim want to be makel. But you have to realize there is a tzad, a strong tzad we should say. Cheshav ha'ifod is saying that there's no tzliya b'macheles. So number 1 is the Mekabel Tumah. Number 2, even if it's not Mekabel Tumah, maybe the fact that it's directly in Oisei Makom, that's going to be a problem. Number 3 is the size of a pad. You all saw there's something called shear gimel by gimel. So maybe the fact that the pad is pachis me gimel al gimel, maybe that's a reason that it's not Mekabel Tumah. Maybe that's not relevant, as you've seen that gimel al gimel generally is a size of a beged. If it's fashioned like that and it's made into a small kli, maybe that would be different. That's a side shmooze. You all already started seeing, maybe I should stop saying that because I can say that about everything, so I'll try to stop saying that, is chad pa'ani, something that is used, one-time use. There it was, you saw, okay. A little more coffee. Maybe too much coffee, unclear. Okay. So, chad pa'ani, Rav Moshe Feinstein says that a tissue, again, this is going to also be a first cousin right now. We're in the middle of discussing pads, but this svara of how the usage of a pad, one has to ask himself, is it the same usage as a tissue? Just like a tissue, there's a svara to say that it's garbage, it's one-time usage. Does the pad have the same qualities of that? And that's something that everyone has to think about. Everyone has to, try to wrap their brain around. And maybe no. On one hand, a tissue, you cannot reuse. You should not. I don't think anyone's hanging up their let's not get graphic over here. But tissues are meant to wipe with once. But a pad, there obviously is a svar to say, you can wear it for a whole day. It depends really on how and their absorbent material, the whole way that they're designed is that there are many, many, many layers that as something falls in it sucks it all the way. And probably that mitzias is important. One day we'll come back to that. We have to realize that I'll just key you in right now what I'm referring to, is if you look at a pad and you don't see anything on it, does that mean there's nothing on it? No. If you take one dot of red and you drop it on a pad, it very well can get it sucked all the way in, that you'll never see it. What's the nafkamina?
Many remnants on the first line.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. The nafkamina is going to be, obviously if it's larger than whatever, it would be different. Nafkamina is going to be different times. Let's just keep that in your brain, that a pad might not be the easiest thing to be mevayer if there is something on it, the size of what would be on it based on that, and you'd have to rip it open and see what's going on inside and whatever. But either way, that's not our shmooze right now. But you have to keep in mind, is it something that has the svara of being chad pa'ami, of being a one-time usage, or maybe not? The svara of a one-time usage says it's not Mekabel Tumah, says Rosh. That's why he's makel by a tissue. But maybe a pad is going to be different. Next is the fact that there are different types of pads and ways of using pads, obviously. Rav Elyashiv comes along with an interesting svara. Is that often the way that a pad is used is you peel off the back of it, which is the sticky part, and you stick it onto the underwear. Says Rav Elyashiv, if it's stuck to the underwear, it's bottle to the pair of underwear, and even if you're going to say the pad is not Mekabel Tumah, since the underwear is Mekabel Tumah, the pad gets a din of Kabbalah Satumah. That is Rav Elyashiv. The kasha, perhaps, on Rav Elyashiv is, now maybe it's not a kasha on Rav Elyashiv per se, because maybe Rav Elyashiv is going to agree, but the kasha is going to be on others, is Shabbos. What's the kasha? Kasha is, are you allowed to take a pad and stick it onto a pair of underwear on Shabbos? What's the shayla? If we're saying that it's bottled because it's stuck on, maybe it's called tafar, maybe it's called taifer, and it's a malach of taifer, and that is a very large sad in the paiskim. If that is an accurate question, that which I just said, maybe one could be machalik and one could say no, to put the pad onto the pair of underwear. If the whole lump is Rav Elyashiv is that it's a bottle to the baguette, it becomes one with the baguette, that's a svara that says it's tougher, it's sewn on. If it's sewn on, that would also do that on Shabbos. If that were to be true, well, we can't put it on Shabbos. Well, maybe that's the case. I think we all know the minhag is not. Oh, and then the next shlav is going to be, what's the story with carrying on Shabbos? If one lives in a place that has Eruv, are they allowed to use a pad? And if the sticking on helps or not, maybe that's the answer to this whole story. I'm not going involved in all of Shabbos right now, but you could say nitty gritty chalukim over here, and there are poskim that want to go and say it will help for carrying, and you're still allowed to do it on Shabbos, even though that sounds like a stira. Because if it can help for carrying, that means it's part of the beggar, and therefore you shouldn't be able to stick it on. Could be that in the world of taifer, there's a heter that it's not firmly stuck. But klape carrying, it could be bought to the beggar. Yes, it sounds like a very fancy lumdis. And then we'd have to come back around. Very good. And now, if you're going to make such a fancy lumdis, then maybe this is not a kasha of Niddah. Because maybe the bittul to the beggar with regard to Tumah B'Tayr could be different. I'm just throwing it out there as a tzad, something to play with. And the final point of the puzzle, the final piece of the puzzle is Thomas Masa, the Sidrei Torah, that anytime you have something that is being held by something else, you're going to run into an issue. So what's the maskana? So the maskana, I don't have it. I mean, I have. You know what? Let's look in here very quickly. We can find it. The way that Rabbi Force in his I have written down the other English book Mar Makam. So let's just see quickly if we can find it over here. The way that he says it is probably the way to say it. He says is that there's no consensus amongst the Paiskim 100% what is the status. Now, what that means is, I can't find it over here.
What's the tzad yet?
The tzad is that again even if you could have 6 shaylas, but if you're machriya every shayla, then it's not a shayla anymore. So again, we're not going to
hold it if a Mekabel Tumah is resting inside Mekabel Tumah.
Yeah.
Does anyone say it's tar?
We'll get to it in a minute. The answer is yes. Yeah. The answer is 100% yes. Answer is yes. But right now, all I'm bringing out is we didn't really discuss each shayla at length. But once you see that there are so many shaylas with a pad, the answer is going to be: can one just say lichatchila, no problem, a pad is not Mekabel Tumah, don't think about anything on it and move on. That is not l'chayra the correct approach. Now, when we'll get to colored, it's going to be very different, right? When we get to tissue even, maybe it'll be very different. But on a pad, as we're seeing, there's many svaras, not only if the pad is Mekabel Tumah, but in the surrounding sugya that just makes it that it shouldn't be something, pad, not Mekabel Tumah, don't ask where was it, how was it, anything. That is not. Now, does that mean that halacha l'maisa, if there's a stain larger than a gris on a pad, we're going to make the woman tummy? No, it doesn't necessarily mean that. It means we're going to have to, A, be mevayer all these shaylas, and B, we're going to have to figure out this situation. What this showed us is that the sugya of a pad is not as simple as saying, do you hold that as Mekabel Tumah or not? That's what we're bringing out after learning the sugya.
So we're talking about number 6? You're saying that?
We're going to get back to there. We're going to get back to, we'll go there right now. Everyone wants to go there now. Everyone wants to Sidri Taira. Let's go to the Sidri Taira right now. So in the Sidri Taira, the answer is that Ramosha. There's a Ramosha and Chilik Dalid. I don't have the Marmukami, I'll tell them afterwards. Ramosha says, Ramosha is machalik between the pad on an underwear, Ramosha doesn't talk about that case, but that's what will come out, and whether one is holding a pad. If you're holding, Ramosha says that Tumas Masa is not Megiyah to Kelim. That's what Ramosha says, and therefore says Ramosha, in the case of the Sidri Taira, what was the case of Sidri Taira? If you have something that's not Mekabel Tumah, on something Mekabel Tumah, what was the case? So Ramosha learns it's only negay if you're holding something. Then there can be Tumas Masa. So Ramosha learned that if the woman is holding a pad, and whatever the case is, she's sitting on the pad, and then the dam falls on it, then Ramosha would agree that even if you were to say the pad is not Mekabel Tumah, there would be Tumah because of Sidri Taira, that ain't a Mekabel Tumah being Oichezes b'zay Mekabel Tumah. But says Ramosha, if it's on a pair of underwear, then that's not the case because there's no Tumas Masa on a pair of underwear, as well as Rav Elyashiv concurred with that. I don't have either Marmakum, okay, I find it afterwards, apologies. It's Tezvav in the Chil Dal? Not Sivkot.
Sivkot and Tezvav, I don't know which the.
Okay, so it's probably Dal Tezvav, okay, very good. And so that's what you're all asking about that Shaila, so that takes care of that Shaila. And let's move on. Let's go into toilet paper. You have a question?
Yeah, what about a tampon?
So tampon, we should have been Maktim. That's a very good question. Tampon is, excuse me, I missed the point to say that. Let's rewind in our brains. We spoke about there's Machlekes Chesha Ve'ephod versus Ramosha on a pad. If we call that Oisei Makam Badik Mi Macheles. Chesha Ve'ephod wanted to say that's called a Kinuach Mi Bachotz, and if I don't care about anything else, it's called directly from the body, and you do not have a Kli B'Macheles. Whereas Ramosha disagreed. Did we rewind back? Okay, good. If you ask about a tampon, everyone will agree because that is directly in Oisei Makam. So even if a tampon is made out of a material that's in a Mekabel Tumah, which if the older pad is in a Mekabel Tumah, then maybe a little tampon is in a Mekabel Tumah, but it's not going to help you. Because it's going directly into Oisei Makam, which is stam the klal, that anything that goes into Oisei Makam, we don't have these type of heterim, which, just to open up our minds, is the reason why sometimes doctors and different procedures and different birth control situations become such difficult shaylas, because we're going directly in Oisei Makam, so we're losing tliyas in ksamim very quickly. That was not a psak at all about any of what goes on medical. Hopefully we will get there, and there is a lot of read over there. There's another tzad chomra that aim psich zamakar b'litam. Again, just let's leave that for now.
There'd be no way out by tampons unless you. And Kollel wouldn't help either.
Nothing would help. It's Oisei Makam. It's mamish Oisei Makam. Which, good, now, again, there's only that much we can all throw in together. I mentioned that a pad, it's impossible to see on it, so a tampon is a kolshkin. What's nafkamina? Nafkamina is someone doesn't have a bedika cloth, and they want to do a bedika with a tampon. Why? Kacha. That's what they want to do. They don't have anything else. So, based on what we're saying now, great, it goes by Oisei Makam. So we'll be mavayer whether there's dam by Oisei Makam, which is the very rough idea of what a bedika is. But the problem is, just like we explained that a pad sucks in all the blood and you can't see it, a tampon is the same thing times a million. And therefore, even if you were to do a bedika with it, it's going to be a difficult situation because if there's one dot of blood, you might have lost it. Many Rabbanim...
It's about how quickly you look at it. Like, how quick does the blood get absorbed in it? If you look at it right away...
Don't know. You want to know if you did it and ran to the Rav? Don't know. I do know that there are Rabbanim that will not even look at it. And they'll say that it's not called a bedika, and now, however that falls into the world of bedikas, we'll have to figure out. The other Rabbanim that will look at it, but it's a difficult process. You have to rip open the whole thing, and you have to make sure. But again, that's not our sikha.
Yeah. People say that you can like wear one if it's like you're not supposed to do a bedika if it's not like.
Yeah. So again. Anyone, it's not part of our sikha. The question, answer to your question is anyone that's you're not. Let's explain that afterwards. Because just we have too much. It's not really our sikha, right? So let's get there. Where are we holding in time? Okay, we're moving along fast. So let's go straight into toilet paper. Let's go into toilet paper. There's one shayla I don't know if we're going to get to. As many shaylas, I don't know how much we're going to get to. We get as much as possible, but we have to just the toilet itself. We already mentioned that this is probably totally in the sugya of Negoyim, and whether something Mekabel Tumah has an issue, even if it would be to be white. We already mentioned that even if is it only Eretz Yisrael or not, the graz would. There's a Teres Shlamim that I think Doyle might have seen that it says a chiddush even in Chutz La'aretz. And now we have to deal with all the different parts of the toilet. What's the story there? And what's with the water in the toilet? But maybe we'll get back to there afterwards. Let's go into toilet paper. So everyone already saw, the Pislei Tshuva. So what's the Maisa after all the dust settles? We have Sijiteir, some Sefer, Shulchan, Shivlevi, Chachani, Gris Maisha. They're all makel on our toilet paper. All makel on our toilet paper, whether it's Panach Hadashis, whether it's other svaras. And the Ramesha, as we already mentioned, that you don't use it many times, and therefore it's not Mekabel Tumah. The tshuva of Ramesha, why a piece of toilet paper is not Mekabel Tumah, should be read carefully. There's probably two ways of understanding Ramesha. That is the reason being that it is, which I heard that the Olam started getting involved in tefillas kelim and pad and reusable pans. And it's a good point because there's the question around Moshe that it's not ra'ui to use it many times, or that it's chad pami, it's that it's a disposable item. The nafkamina is what I mentioned before about a pad. You all should have yelled at me because I said a pad and I told you it could be used again. So maybe you agree with me the way that we learned Ramesha. But if you look at the words Ramesha, some want to say Ramesha says chad pami, disposable, and move on in life. And a pad is certainly disposable. So that detail that we were bringing out, that a pad might not have the heter of there, is based on how you exactly want to learn Ramesha's lumdis in toilet paper of chad pami. And again, l'chayra pshat is not chad pami and move on and close your eyes. I'll just mention the same heter applies in tefillas kelim, in disposable pans. Is it something that is disposable and therefore doesn't have a shaving kli? Whether it's exactly the same heter or not the sugya for now. But I'm just pointing out the exact same machlokes applies over there. Meaning, do you say that heter is it's disposable? Don't think, don't do anything. You can do whatever you want. You can use your disposable pans 1,000,000 times, and it doesn't make a difference. Or is that heter no more within the svara, like we're explaining now, is it's not right to use it many times. And then what would happen based if that was a svara? Nowadays, that they are right to many times, maybe the psak would change. So again, just be ma'ayin in the tshuva regarding that detail, and the public service announcement is that there's apparently many aluminum foil pans in the market with a hechsher that you don't need to table them, and therefore it's probably kedai to spend the extra few pennies on them, and then you could reuse them, and you don't have to worry about them. They have nothing to do with Niddah. But let's move on. So toilet paper in a vacuum is al pi pashtus not Mekabel Tumah. But the question is, and again, a lot of what we're saying now Baruch Hashem, as we get more and more knowledge in our brains, things are going to start repeating each other. Now we have to ask ourselves the question, but you wiped yourself after using the bathroom with the toilet paper. Is that itself a sad chumrah? again, will be mocked with the kula that we already spoke out, which was Ramosha. Ramosha already spoke out that when you wipe yourself, number one, it's not just by Yisei Makayim, and therefore you also wipe the edges, and therefore it's not a problem. Number two is you're not running out of the bathroom. Rav Elyashiv is quoted as to have been saying is that when you wipe yourself, it has a din of a kesem b'guf. It's a din of a kesem b'guf. Why? Because when you wipe yourself, you're wiping off your guf. What's the difference? Fundamental shayla. Kesem b'guf versus kesem al b'gadav. The difference is, if I have a pair of underwear, the dam fell on the underwear. If I have dam on my body, we already spoke about the Rav's not looking at the body, so what's the Rav going to do? Maybe he'll tell you to wipe it off. So if you take that toilet paper and you wipe off your body, it's still called a kesem al bisar. So they quote Rav Elyashiv as saying that any time a woman wipes herself after using the bathroom, that is a din of a kesem al bisara, with which you all know is a massive nafkamina. Not necessarily because the shach is machm like the Rambam, one tipa is tummy. Not because of that. Because tipa mitzdarfin. Tipa mitzdarfin. L'maisa Ramosha disagrees. Ramosha disagrees. The same Ramosha that we keep on talking about is in disagreement. The whole tshuva is coming and discussing tliyah b'machaylas.
Tipa mitzdarfin. So if you find tipa on the toilet paper,
yes,
then you're going to assume that's how it was on the body?
If you hold that as a din of kesem, it doesn't make a difference. That's how it was.
It's like a din kesem al basar, but Lamaisa, the dam was on her guf, and then now it's on a tissue.
So let me ask a question. Go back.
As
A woman,
go
back. A woman calls up. She has dam on her thigh. What do you tell her? How big is it? I don't know. Measure. Okay. How am I going to look at it? Tell her wipe it off on a tissue. Now, whoever comes in, and now it's going to have a din of team zarfin because it was al basar. So it's the same thing.
It may not copy over.
Oh, good. No, I understand that there's a problem. It's the same problem with every kesem al basara. That might not copy over, and you're going to have to figure out a way to be mishayir it, to estimate it to the best of your ability. I'm asking, but what are you going to do? For example, this is a case that l'chayra everyone would agree. Let's say a woman feels wetness. She takes a tissue and wipes herself. Is that a kesem al guf or kesem al begadav? Everyone agrees it's called a kesem al basar because she felt wetness, and then she wiped off the wetness that she felt.
It's like something that we're talking about now.
No. I'm just giving you another case. It's not just you're right. It's just slow motion. It's different because our Moshe is talking about a case. Not that she felt wetness. She wiped herself after using the bathroom. It's very different than the fact if a woman sitting there and says, I feel something on my body, and I wiped that something off. Another case which would potentially happen is sometimes a woman will, I think we gave the bad mashal, the little kid goes into the bedroom on Shabbos and he turns on the light, oh shoot, and he quickly turns it off. So similarly, a woman wipes herself and she sees something on the toilet paper, so she quickly flushes. But then, now she's curious. What in the world did I see? So she takes another tissue. I'm not saying this is right. She shouldn't do any of this. She takes another tissue and wipes herself. That second tissue that she wiped herself, what's that? For sure that's a kesem al basar. No one would disagree with that. She went to see what was al basar. And therefore, all we're pointing out now is, very simply, again, in the world of Lamaisa, the case that's always going to happen is going to be the first case that Ramosha is making. But it's important to realize that if the scenario were to have happened, it would be called the kesem al basara. I agree with you, it would be very difficult to figure out where are tipin and how it is mitzarif, but you have to realize that there potentially is a chaymer of kesem al basara. How l'maisa you're going to deal with that? Yeah, it's a big problem. Let's also,
Does everyone agree that if you wipe it off the basar on purpose, that's called a kesem al basar?
Everyone should agree with that.
Even though it's on a tissue?
Everyone should agree with that. I said, everyone should agree with that. I did one time hear someone that wanted to claim that, I'm repeating something I don't understand, so it's not like in a sefer. Someone wanted to say that the bits, I'm not even going to repeat it, but, no, I just don't, I'm not like it's fun. I don't understand it. Is that, there's never a kesem al basara. So I don't understand it. So we'll talk about it after the sefer. Let's move on. Okay, we have 10 minutes left. Should we go into Tzivonim right now?
Yeah.
Or does themselves cut with Tzivonim? We're good? Okay, I'm fine. I'm fine.
Please repeat the Ramosha again about the bath and what's the shot?
So Ramosha says is that you're not just wiping oisamakim, you're wiping around as well, and therefore you have a tzliv machilas. Why does he not call it like Kesem al Basara? Because, meaning, we understand what he says, but Tachlis is you're wiping off your body. So the answer, you have to explain something along the lines that it's different if you know something is on your body, meaning everything came from the body, right? If I'm wearing a pair of underwear, it also came from the body. And this might be the answer to a lot of these questions. But if it's all totally in where you found the Kesem. So it's different if I know something's on my body and I wipe it off, whereas if I use the bathroom and I just wipe myself indiscriminately, then we're going to have the liberty of saying that the Messias HaKesem is on the tissue. I agree that I just split a hair very, very, very finely. We could hack out the lumdus, but and maybe Rabbi say what Ramesh is asking is that you really have to explain the svar of Ramesha, because maybe that's going to help. Good. And however you can explain the chiddush of Ramesha, maybe it'll give you more latitude. Good. Masking to the island. Let's move on.
What do you open up for me that asking is
Keep it separate.
Like do hold that middle level?
Of course, no, that's for sure. For sure.
There is a lot of rules and it's exactly like.
Yeah, but it's not that we pass keep it separate. Okay. What is called Tzivonim? So there's a Geshmak Araya here. I said to Dov yesterday, but let's tell everyone together. What color is Tzivonim? No, let's go back, excuse me. There's a heter on Tzivonim. Why is there a heter on Tzivonim? Says Rashi, because it's not a nicker. You can't tell what's red. Okay, what's called Tzivonim? Says all the Paiskim, I shouldn't say all the Paiskim, incorrect. Says all the older, not contemporary Paiskim, the Chachmazal, the Meshachmar Charab, the Simla, the Aruch HaShulchan, they say Tzivonim is Tzivonim. Kol meaning Tzivonim. No one starts giving qualifications. Comes along Paiskim Manenu and says Chodshani, and says Shevet Alevi, and says Rav Yashib, then no. If it's a light colored, or as the island, we have all our interior designers here that love pastel colors, they all say that's not called Tzivonim. So the question is, how do we answer? It's a big kasha, because Rashi said that it's not nicker. So if it is nicker, then l'chayr it's not Tzivonim. Meaning, if I have a dark blue baguette and something falls in it, it's not nicker, I know what it is. If I have even a green maybe, it's not nicker. But if I have a light yellow baguette, if I have a tan baguette, and a dot of blood falls in it, I can see the color. So why is there a heter of Tzivonim? So the Ilam I know just wants to say loy gazru and don't think about it, but we need to give a little bit of avana. Like when we came to the shear meaning the size, we explained this loy gazru. What pshat loy gazru? Because bisman chazal there was a macheles to be tailan. So what do we do with Tzivonim? So first of all, before we get to a beautiful svar that I saw, I don't know, it was one of these farm quoted, I think they quoted it from Rav Avadia, but I also said the Badi Shulchan, but I couldn't find it, so I'm just going to quote the svar. It's a beautiful svar. Before we get there, Rav Asher Weiss says, if no one says anything, meaning, you open Aruch HaShulchan, you open a grass, you open a Chachmas, they just say color is color. So they didn't say anything. That means color is color. So you're going to start telling me that they didn't have such a color? It's difficult. They should have explained only a dark color. They should have explained only something you can't tell. Okay, but how do we answer the question? So beautiful lumdus is as follows. Bisman Chazal, Gemara. What color made a woman tameh? Chamisha mine dam. Lahavchin bin dam ledam. You were able to tell different shades of red. Bisman Chazal. If a red fell on a pastel yellow, would you be able to tell it's red? The answer is no, because not every red is red. So even on something as light as a light pastel might mess up that shade enough to mess up the color. So even though Bisman as we're machmir on all types of red, shkayach. But we know, we go to Sfar of the Chasam Sefer and Ramosha, that the Loy Gazru goes when? Bisman Chazal. So when they made the Gzeir Bisman Chazal, it would make a massive difference if it fell on any color. Because it could have fallen on the lightest color and it would have enough to mess up the red that they couldn't tell what it is. And therefore, even though nowadays we're going to be machmer on all reds, what is called Tzivonim, we're going to be makel, just like we're makel on the size of a gris, because there were machalises back then, we're going to be makel on what color is called color. And therefore, I don't care it's a light yellow, I don't care it's a light anything. The bottom line is, Bisman Chazal would have made a difference? Of course, because they were showing the finest nuances in color. Therefore, even Bisman Hazeh, it's going to still have that heter, and therefore anything that's colored, and Rav Scheinberg used to say, what's called Tzivonim? Anything that's not the color of your shirt.
Well, what changed in the Tzias?
Because we're machmir on all types of red. Back when Chazal, they were machmir on all types of red. They only machmir on 5 types of red. So when you only machmir on 5 types of red, that means that the differences in red are so minor. The whole kasha is predicated on the fact, but I can see it's red and yellow. Meaning, if you were to ask Rashi HaKadosh this question, Rashi would laugh at you. I answered the question. He said it's not nicker. But Rashi, it is nicker. No, it's not. No, it's not. Back then, give up. Okay, that was a beautiful lumbus. Lamaisa, what's called colored? Anything. Anything's called colored. Light pastels, light yellow, light pink, light blue, whatever you want, is called color. We already mentioned some poskim don't like very dark, don't like black, don't like dark blues, because of other reasons. I just want to point out, in the world of Lamaisa, it's really not going to make a difference. It's really not going to make a difference. We mentioned because maybe a woman is going to have a flow and she's not going to notice. Like Rabbi said, you can't not notice if you're having a period. It's like a little bit extreme. Or maybe she's going to have a hargasha. We already said there's no real hargasha. So it's not really going to make a difference. And I don't know if it's something that necessarily needs to be emphasized so much. We're going to conclude with okay, so we still have more. Let's just talk about Rabbi Akiva Eiger for a minute. Akiva Eiger is machmir miltzdaka on one large stain, the reds within the large stain, right? Rabbi Akiva Eiger guys in Sukkot and Zayin. No one argues on this Rabbi Akiva Eiger. No one argues this Rabbi Akiva Eiger, but often we can tell that's not actually one stain. That's the nekuda. Meaning, if it's clearly one stain, and there's 2 parts of red within one stain.
What's one stain mean? It came out of the
Good. This is exactly what I'm bringing out. It came out, and meaning we're looking at a video and we're watching one big splotch of blood fall, and it falls, and in this splotch has red, white, red. This obviously never happens in real life, but this is pretending. Red, white, red. In that scenario, the reds will actually be mitzvah v'lach l'maisa to the sheer kris. More commonly, it's not going to be red, white, red. It's going to be red, brown, off brown, red. Then, yes, the reds will combine within a stain. So even though we may mention that whenever you look at a stain on a pair of underwear, you have to be careful to measure it, but you have to realize it's the reds. 2 reds will combine. However, often, a seasoned Moirei Hara, a seasoned Baki will be able to see that it's not one stain. So they're not arguing on Rabbi Akiva Eiger. Everyone's masking if it's one stain, the 2 halves combine. But if I know that it's not one stain, how do I know? Because I know. Just like my eyes can see, my eyes rather can't see such a thing. But there are those that can look at the stain and say, no, I know 100% that fell at 2 different times. That's something different. But we are machmer like Rabbi Akiva Eiger, and we're going to end off with a shayla. Because we're going to end up with the shayla of what do you do with the white tights underneath the beged savua? What do you do with it? Lamaisa, the kesem fell on the beged savua, fell on the colored underwear, and then it seeped through to the white tights. Do you have the heter of Tzivonim or not? On one hand, you want to say it fell on Tzivonim koltav. On the other hand, you want to say the whole heter of Tzivonim is Rashi, is a nicker. But now that it seeps through to the white, it's nicker. I'm looking at it, and therefore l'chayra, it should be a problem. There are those is a b'sel chachma that is mekel. The question just is, what's pshat? Chotshani, Tzitz, they all just argue and ask what's pshat. So we'll leave that as food for thought, how to reconcile that. And let's move on. Sif Yudaf. That wraps up Kimat the whole Sif.
What about toilets and everything like that?